Welcome to the Oscars Cheat Sheet Miniseries. Why bother having an opinion on this year's Best Picture nominees when you can just use ours? Welcome everybody to the Cult Popture podcast, where we're doing a mini-series, an Oscars cheat sheet mini-series, where if you haven't seen the film, we'll tell you what to think about it. Though that being said, there are spoilers for these films, so listen to whatever you want to listen to out of the 10 episodes we're doing, where we're covering all the Best Picture nominees in these little chunks. And I'm here, I'm AJ, and I'm here with Richard, and I'm here with Aaron, our actor / friend, and we're going to be talking about Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley. Evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
We'll go all gothic and spooky.
Yeah.
Yes. Nothing spookier than being like evening.
So yeah, Nightmare Alley. It's a remake of it's the second adaptation of a novel.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a 1947 film also called Nightmare Alley, a book from 1946. So this also. I mean, not also. This is a new podcast. This has an ensemble cast starring Bradley Cooper, also Cate Blanchett, who is now because of her appearances in Don't Look Up and Nightmare Alley, she's the first actress in history to have credited roles in 9 Best Picture nominees.
Oh,
good lord!
Interesting.
Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman, also in this after Don't Look Up. Mary Steenburgen, Tim Blake Nelson, a few others.
Yeah, a blink and you'll miss it role from Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, well, if you stop watching like a minute before the end of the film, you'll miss it.
A long blink.
Aaron, what's this about?
Nightmare Alley is set in 1940s, kind of circus culture, basically. We follow Bradley Cooper's character, whose name is... Stan, as he basically, the opening shot portrays him dragging what looks like potentially a body and then setting fire to it as he walks away. And then he gets on a bus which takes him to a circus where he quickly ingratiates himself with a couple of people there. Becomes a part of the circus community and is sort of trained in the arts of, I guess that's like mysticism or like
cold reading.
Yeah, cold reading, clairvoyance, by this old circus man who eventually dies. I'm not sure if it's clear 100% or not who is responsible or whether the death is intentional, but it comes as a result of Bradley Cooper basically giving him alcohol that's poisonous. And then
wood alcohol instead of
yes,
drinking alcohol,
sugarcane alcohol. And then he also has fallen in love with a person who works at the circus, and they run away together. Fast forward 2 years later, he's working in Buffalo, New York, and he's become a successful cold reader, clairvoyant person. And then he is approached by Cate Blanchett's character ostensibly to help this Buffalo judge and his wife sort of deal with the death of their son in World War II. And then eventually that interaction leads him to being introduced to a sort of Citizen Kane type figure who's this ultra wealthy guy who wants to kind of see his dead wife. And then... do we want to reveal? So Cate
Blanchett, who is the shrink for all these wealthy types, is like supplying Bradley Cooper with inside information from having counseled them, so that he can be like, he can know stuff that he shouldn't know, basically,
and convince them of his powers. Do we want to spoil the end? Spoiler alert?
Not necessarily, I guess. Maybe we'll talk about it.
The only thing I want to talk about.
Okay,
honestly,
it doesn't go well for him.
Yes. So he basically orchestrates this event where the Citizen Kane type reclusive millionaire is going to see his dead wife appear in human form, and the human form is Bradley Cooper's now unhappy partner who
Really
he ran
nice
away with
character,
from. Yeah, who's played by. The reclusive billionaire discovers that actually this isn't his materialized dead wife. It is, in fact, a human person pretending to be his dead wife. He freaks out, calls out for his bodyguard. Freaking out, Bradley Cooper's character beats him to death and then runs away to their car, and they're chased by the bodyguard, who they like run over very brutally. But also, like, when I watched it, I was like, God, I'm so glad someone finally does this. You know, just like don't run away from him. Just solve the problem. Kill him now.
Yeah.
Anyway, they brutally run over this guy. Bradley Cooper's character's partner decides she's had enough. She runs away, and he basically runs to Cate Blanchett's character, and she reveals that she's basically been manipulating him into, I guess, kind of murdering or taking her revenge against these high society types. And she basically calls the cops and attempts to frame him. And so he has to run away.
Frame him, even though he's absolutely done.
Yeah, responsible for
himself.
I guess, yeah, she wants to get rid of the guilt from herself and like put all of the blame solely on Bradley Cooper's character. Eventually, he manages to run away on a train, and he resorts to alcoholism and homelessness.
It was his dad that he killed at the start in the opening shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he finds a new carnival and is like, look, I can do mentalist stuff. And Tim Blake Nelson, who plays the carny, is like, I've got a geek show if you can do that. And he's like, I'd be perfect for it. And we, at the start of the movie opens.
It's like telling a joke and you get to the punchline and you go,
like,
wait,
no. Yeah, that's
the
my
dad
bad,
had
guys.
a dog.
Yeah, but so a geek show, if you're not aware, is like, it's different from a freak show. Geek show is specifically like just biting the heads off chickens, and that's the whole act.
Swallowing things, I think, officially in carny culture.
Yeah, like, and that's a large part. But yeah, anyway, it's like the most horrific thing you can do.
Well, because Willem Dafoe, who is responsible for the geek in the circus from the first half of the movie, he explains to Bradley Cooper that you basically pull a drunk off the street and get them to fake being a geek until you guilt trip them or essentially say like, no, you're not a real geek. We need a real geek. You're fired. And then they go, no, I'll do anything. So it's essentially like established early on in the film as like, this is true rock bottom.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the film, it sort of dawns on you, and then you're like, oh my God, Bradley Cooper has gone from the heights of Buffalo to the dregs.
And for me, it was interesting.
To rock bottom.
So, cards on the table, I haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, but I've never been a huge Del Toro fan. But it's like, I know I haven't seen his best films, sort of thing. So take that with a grain of salt. But and so coming into this, it's like, I really like the idea of Guillermo del Toro, and he looks so cuddly. I want to give him a big hug. And I like the idea of his films. I love that Shape of Water won Best Picture. I love that, a film like that was able to win. But I didn't love Shape of Water. And so coming into this, Nightmare Alley, it was one of those ones that I was kind of like, it was this year's like Ford v Ferrari, the one that I was like, oh, I can't be fucked watching that, so I hope it doesn't get nominated. But then
I had turned down watching it twice because I was like, I'm not that interested. And then it got nominated. I was like, oh, Christ.
I could have watched this twice.
So sure that it didn't get nominated. Wouldn't get nominated.
But then watching it, and again, like when I said, the end is all I want to talk about, like, I wasn't invested in it until that final scene where he agrees to be a geek. And I was like, of course this is how you end this movie.
Of course this is how you end this movie.
And it was like, because when the film started, I was like, love him or hate him, you gotta respect Del Toro's production design, because just like the way he composes a shot and just like every single inch of the frame is just like so exquisitely designed, and like doing a kind of gothic period piece. This is his first film which doesn't have anything supernatural in it, and it's
it does pretending to.
It's pretending, certainly.
and I sort of, when I started watching, I messaged you, I think, and said like, Del Toro is like what would happen if Tim Burton never got bad. Like, if Tim Burton, rather than being bad, just like really honed his craft, because like thinking more of his stuff like when it's not super stylized, like at parts of Big Fish, which obviously a lot of it is stylized, but it's something like Big Eyes, which is after he got bad, or kind of the film that was The Shift. But yeah, like he can. He pays a lot of attention to his production design and everything like that, and so yes, like the watching it being like this is kind of a Tim Burton movie, and then with the end when he has the geek show and like I realize it's also like it's essentially if Tim Burton designed a Martin Scorsese film. And
Wow.
having that realization made me be like, oh, of course, like this is, and it all clicked into place because it's like there are these other things that I recognize that I like elsewhere, because that rise and then the like crashing fall is it's like that's all of Scorsese's movies, or like he has like quite a few movies that are just like that, and he does it better than anyone else. Like the likes of like Goodfellas is like the Wolf of Wall Street's like that. And so having that realization that it's like no, it is this familiar thing that I always find so captivating, and not sort of realizing that until that final scene when you see just how rock bottom Bradley Cooper has hit. That I was like, oh, fuck you know, I did like this movie.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I really liked this movie. I like I said, I was not planning on watching it, really. And for some reason, I thought it was reviewed poorly, but it wasn't. And I just had a great time with it. I thought that, like, I loved the ending as well, but I had a great time leading up to it. I thought all of the sequences were super interesting. I thought all of the characters were super interesting. I loved Willem Dafoe in this movie. He was great. I had a great time with this. I thought it was awesome. I'd probably prefer it to Shape of Water.
Yeah. Is it because of the fish penis in Shape of Water?
It's because of the fish.
It's not so much because it's because of the lack of fish penis here.
Oh, right, yeah.
You see Bradley Cooper's penis in this movie for what it's worth.
That's
and
true.
He's in water.
It's very fishy.
So that's pretty close to fish penis.
What did you think of the movie, Aaron?
Yeah, so it's similar sort of a vibe, actually. It was maybe one of the ones I didn't know a huge amount about, but I was sort of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. But yeah, I really loved it. I would say I've kind of categorized the movies in my mind as like being upper tier, mid tier, and lower tier in terms of like how I felt about them. And I would say this is probably like upper middle tier, I would say.
And now that we know about your tier system, where would you put Don't Look Up?
Lower tier, definitely.
Right.
Lower tier, definitely.
Yeah. Lower tier. Sorry, lower tier.
Lower tier. What I was going to say, one thing that sort of struck me when you were talking earlier about the fact that Cate Blanchett has now been nominated for 9 times for Best...
She's been in 9 Best Pictures.
9 Best Pictures, yeah. Is that... It seems unfortunate to me that she's kind of been typecast as like playing a cold bitch in like most of her roles,
because she seems like fucking fun in real life.
Yeah, and also like she's an incredible actress, so it's just sort of this tragedy of like she's kind of just portrays these roles, and you feel like, you know, being an amazing actor, her range is probably like, you know, you can't see my hands clearly, but
they're very far apart.
They're very far apart. Whoa! The space is enormous. Yeah, but you know, like I don't know, it just really made me think about the fact that there is very limited opportunities for women and also like, you know, people of color, etc., of like being able to portray things other than just like, this is what they do, we know they do this well, let's bring in Cate Blanchett.
It is really interesting as well, because especially like talking about like limited roles for women, that like the kind of like Oscar-y roles and you know, female roles in this kind of movie, you don't get a lot where it's like, this is just a lady having a good time and just being like a real cool person.
No.
Like you don't get women don't win awards for performances like Brad Pitt's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, and they generally aren't movies that are like, they love the movie. It's like they're performance-based movies, and often like movies that the person themselves had to be like, okay, I'll be the producer and we'll get this made so that, you know.
I wonder, it'd be interesting to go back, and I mean, you might only have to go back to last year, but how many, like how often a Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress nominee does, or like winner doesn't cry in the film?
Yeah, like,
and compare that with the men.
I know we shouldn't be talking about other movies, but it just because it's come up, I was surprised that the lead actress in Belfast wasn't nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress. Obviously, I haven't seen...
The mother.
Yeah. Obviously, I haven't seen a lot of, like, the actual Best Actress, Best Actor movies because predominantly comes from like being the Ricardos and sort of films that are more about performance rather than like best movie.
Yeah, it's an interesting batch this year. There's a lot that didn't make Best Picture.
Yeah, I was just surprised because like part of what I loved about her performance wasn't like it had so many shades in it.
50.
50 Shades of...
And it wasn't black and white.
It was literally 50 Shades of Grey. But you know, like, I don't know. But also, speaking of surprises, I was actually a little bit surprised that Bradley Cooper wasn't nominated for Best Actor
no acting
for his
nominations for this film.
performance.
And I wonder if that, and same with Don't Look Up as well. And I wonder, Don't Look Up did quite well at the Golden Globes where they split it into comedy and drama. So obviously it's like the most prestigious comedy film. But then it was also up against musicals, which obviously West Side Story.
I probably would have given Richard Jenkins a Best Supporting Actor nomination for this film. I thought that's the kind of role that you can feel him like gunning for recognition for.
But like, I wonder if because I mean, obviously I guess your leads would be Cate Blanchett and Bradley Cooper would fit into those categories. But the supporting cast is like who you would nominate is stretched kind of thin. Like Willem Dafoe and Richard Jenkins, I think would probably cancel each other out. And even like Tony Collette, Rooney Mara, like that they might have split the vote a little bit.
That's so true, because that is how the voting works and how nominees are selected. I think these are all really great points. I think as well it's also worth noting that Cate Blanchett actually plays in both her 2022 Oscar-nominated movies sort of a sultry homewrecker in both films. So you're totally right, Aaron, about
Don't
that.
Look Up, she plays like a Kelly Ripa type on like the bubbly, bright like morning show sort of thing where they have the scientists on regularly, and it's like, all right, well, we don't talk about the world ending because we want to keep it light. That's her sort of character in this. But Nightmare Alley. This so far I've still got a couple movies to watch, but I think this was probably my biggest surprise in terms of how I've actually felt about it.
Probably one of the best stories in terms of like gripping you, I guess. And I mean, I guess it's, a noir
and keeping
and
you guessing as well.
Well, like the fact that like a noir and like the classic, the Scorsesean rise and fall. It's like they're all they're like story tropes and story structures you respond to.
Yeah, but I think you probably don't necessarily realize that's what it is until, because it also sort of starts you immediately in. You're not really kind of primed in any way. It's just like you're immediately into the film, so you don't really know what's going on for maybe the first 20 minutes.
Maybe it's a film, maybe it's just because I'm stupid, but it's a film where like a character literally tells you, this is this world's version of the worst thing that can happen to you. And not once before the final scene did I predict that's where our Shakespearean hero would find himself.
And he's also deeply unlikable as well. Well, maybe not deeply unlikable. He's a horrible person, but somehow you're able to like be on his side for 2.5 hours and be like, no, I don't want this horrible person who murdered his father to like become a geek. No.
Yeah, I think because he doesn't talk for the first 20 minutes, that I was like, I like this guy. And that's all I needed to project my own personality.
He's a me kind of guy.
I got like 10 minutes into the film and then was like, has he spoken yet? Oh, I'm not being paid enough attention. And I googled, does Bradley Cooper speak in Nightmare Alley?
What's his first line? Does anyone remember? No, it wasn't even like a big line kind of a thing.
Is it when he's talking to the geek and
you could be right,
he's got no beef with him?
Yeah.
I also quite liked AJ's title review. I quite liked the title as this one because it... you watch a film called Nightmare Alley and you're like, right, when are we going to get to the Nightmare Alley?
Yeah.
When are we going to get there?
The beautiful part about it is, Willem Dafoe says it like a third of the way through the movie and you're like, there it is. He said it. He said the title. And then by the end of the movie, you actually understand.
Well, because he's asked... Bradley Cooper asks him where he gets the bums that become geeks from, and he lists off a few like euphemisms for basically the sewers, and one of them is Nightmare Alley, and by the end of the film, gentlemen, we are there. We are in Nightmare Alley. You know,
and we don't know how to get out.
Yeah, and we're a drunk,
and we've bloody lost our map. It is also worth pointing out that Leonardo DiCaprio was originally cast as Stanton Carlyle, but pulled out not for Don't Look Up. I believe it pulled out for his the one he's making with Scorsese, The Devil in the White City, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, and Bradley Cooper's sort of talked about his, because he had said after Star is Born, he said he didn't want to star in anything that Killers of the Flower Moon, not Devil in the White City. And yeah, he said he only wanted to star in things that he had written, and Del Toro managed to convince him. And so it was like, there saw this thing that it's like, he'd said this he only wanted to star in these movies, and then also knowing he was the second choice. And so it was like, saw this thing to overcome. But he said as soon as they started shooting, the fact that like, it was, considering himself a director, he was like, he was, able to sort of communicate on that sort of level, and apparently they had a really good working relationship. But yeah, I think this movie absolutely could have worked with Leo. I think we've seen him in these sort of roles before, so it was I'm glad. I mean, whether he dropped out for Don't Look Up or Kills of the Flower Moon, they're both roles we haven't really seen, because he's playing the villain in Kills of the Flower Moon. And
don't Devil in the White City and Killers of the Flower Moon sound like they're part of the same franchise?
I mean, they might be. I don't know.
No, I don't think they are. It's just they're very idiosyncratic titles.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Bradley Cooper was able to do a role like this. It is weird he's not nominated, just because it's a very, I mean, although it is an ensemble cast, it's a very kind of carrying the film on your back sort of role, and a film that's nominated for Best Picture, you'd think it was. But I wasn't. No, actually, I was going to say I wasn't wowed by his performance, but I think I actually was. I remember actually thinking, like, wow.
Yeah, because it's one of those roles as well where he plays roles within the movie, and often that's something that the Academy awards, because it shows your ability to like have a layered performance, because your character is literally pretending to be. Because there are moments where I think when he's in Buffalo, his like stage persona has a slightly different voice to his regular voice.
Yeah.
And things like that. So yeah, I guess you're right. It's not necessarily like, he doesn't have an Oscar scene in the movie necessarily, but
I mean, it's probably the final scene of the film, and you can't show
actually,
that.
Sorry, I take that back. That probably is clearly an Oscar scene, but it's not that long either necessarily. What I guess what we're talking about is like a kind of a moment where you're like, oh my god,
damn, that's acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper, though, like, I mean, I know he's been nominated for a bunch of Oscars and never won, but I think he's still like underrated as an actor. Yeah. Like, he's one that you wouldn't list on the same sort of, when you're talking about greatest actors of our generation or like currently working, but he's definitely up there. Like, and weirdly, I think like American Sniper is one of his best performances. He's so fucking good in that movie, and I mean, obviously, Star is Born, but. Yeah, I hope to see him win an Oscar one day. He's overdue for one, I think.
So, how likely is Nightmare Alley to win Best Picture, Richard? What do you think?
So, according to our odds, it's 100-1. It's the lowest, according to the odds checker.
I believe it can do it. The little movie that could.
Yeah, but I think it is one that people were surprised. Because, yeah, like you said, I was under the impression that people were disappointed by this. It's got 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, isn't a perfect metric, but I think it's not, I think, as good as people were hoping for.
When it got nominated, I thought it was like, well, he won the fucking Oscar his last movie.
Yeah,
we can't
exactly.
not acknowledge him for this one.
Yeah,
but I ended up quite liking it. So,
and just on what it's actually nominated for, Best Picture, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, and Production Design. I would like to see. I think it would Production Design, depending on who it's up against. Obviously,
it's a circus. Of course, it'll win.
It's a period circus. Of course, it's winning.
There's kind of like, for the technical awards, there's like two powerhouses going up against each other, and that's Dune and Power of the Dog, obviously for very different reasons. But Production Design, Dune, Nightmare Alley, Power of the Dog, Tragedy Macbeth, and West Side Story. Cinematography, Nightmare Alley's up against Dune, Power of the Dog, Tragedy Macbeth, and West Side Story. Same nominees. Interesting. And costume design, it's Cruella, Serrano, Dune, Nightmare Alley, and West Side Story.
It might win that. I wouldn't be surprised if it won that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was our conversation on Nightmare Alley. And please check out our other episodes in the cheat sheet, if they're out or not. Who knows? If you like this, please consider liking and following Cult Pop Show on Twitter and Instagram, and you can also join our Discord, which there is a link to in the show notes, or you can chuck some money our way over at patreon.com/cultpopshow, or email us at cultpopshowmedia@gmail.com. Tell us why Nightmare Alley will win. It will win Best Picture. Thank you for listening.
And catch us next time for, we're going to talk about, I've decided, licorice pizza.
Okay.